Today's conversation is on focusing on yourself. We can also say focusing from yourself. And by that I mean true self, beyond beliefs of limitation, beyond the beliefs that suggest otherwise, the beliefs that belong to what the Bible refers to as the old man, which is not you, as you really think for yourself. Today I feel inspired to discuss some aspects from a wonderful book called Abd Allah, Teacher Healer by Walter C. Lanyon. Walter C. Lanyon. Jules, who is a member of my Flow-Based Prosperity group masterminding and coaching service, created a wonderful playlist of her reading it. She felt inspired to do so for you, and I feel inspired to share it with you by linking in the description to it. I recommend listening to it. It's a wonderful book, Abd Allah, Teacher Healer by Walter C. Lanyon. There are many ways to relate to this book. One of the ways that I relate to this book is focusing on yourself, thinking from yourself. This means thinking from the premise of your true nature, your true way of being. He says, when you have a perfect concept of something, it is easy to reproduce it. I agree. I trust you have found this as well. For example, if you have an image in your mind of the kind of relationship you desire to experience, maybe even dedicate some time to sit down and list the attributes of this ideal relationship. Maybe describing the person, maybe describing how you relate with this person. You can form a mental picture in your mind's eye of experiencing this kind of relationship. And surely you go on to experience that kind of relationship. I speak from experience, as I've done this many times in previous relationships, going back to when I first got this idea, and I don't remember exactly when I got the idea. What I started doing was creating a list of qualities that I look for in a person. I'm speaking about romantic relationships now. This can also be applied for friendships, business relationships, as I have done it, and it works perfectly. Through dating, through meeting people, you discover what kind of relationship you are interested in, the kind of experiences you would like to have. And I found that there's no need to look to this world for approval, validation of the relationships that you desire to have. Even if those kinds of relationships don't seem to appear, even if the attributes of the person that you desire to be in a relationship with don't appear, as in you don't see your friends having a relationship like that. You've never met anyone like that. What I have found is you end up meeting the person. And maybe you end up meeting this person and end up in a relationship with them. And then after the relationship, you say, well, in my next relationship, I would like to have this kind of experience or that kind of experience, or this kind of attribute in a partner. As we find that we transform as well while in relationships. As I mentioned, relationships are catalysts for transformation. Like entrepreneurship is a catalyst for transformation. Just about anything can be a catalyst for transformation. You want a baseball diamond. Used to play baseball growing up. Baseball can be a catalyst for transformation. A conversation can be a catalyst for transformation. So you get clearer and you understand yourself. You know yourself. You know who you truly are as you experience life. And you choose to experience the kind of relationships that you desire. I likened what we just discussed to what he says here. He says, every grain of dust is moved before the whole mountain will be put away. And it is the realizing of this that makes the way worthwhile. By daily mind purification, I say, in relation to what he says, and putting away, we will find the mountain has been entirely moved and that we have attained the heights of demonstration. So bit by bit, experience by experience, every experience, you learn more about yourself. You're able to look at the appearances, and rather than judging yourself inharmoniously or judging the other person inharmoniously, you check in with yourself. And you say, what is it that I truly desire? And sure enough, the answer arises via the still small voice, which is also what he talks about. And we'll get into that in a moment. I like how he said, and it is the realizing of this that makes the way worthwhile. Did you know that the earlier Christians were called people of the way? People of the way. In Psalm 50:23, it states, "And to him that ordereth his conversation aright, I will show the salvation of God." If the individual in mind orders their inner conversation, their inner speech, their inner thinking to be from the premise of their true nature, which is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, which is what we desire to experience in relationships, what happens is those relationships appear. They appear. You could be walking somewhere and you see the person. Start a conversation with them. You go home and then you see that they have every attribute on that list. You could be out and about and you meet someone, not even thinking about this list. That has happened to me as well. And then all of a sudden the conversation flows so harmoniously, and then it flashes in your mind, wait, this person matches the list. So start where you are. Learn about yourself. Start creating a list. Go within. Consult with the still small voice. The still small voice that speaks from the silence. And maybe it's 1 or 2 items on the list to begin with. If you're in high school, some of you who watch my videos are in high school. Maybe someone piques your curiosity. I actually found that my very first girlfriend still, and it was the first time I experienced it was with her, has an admirable attribute, let's say, that I choose to continue experience in relationships, as I had a number of relationships over the years. It's her ability to be very quick-witted and respond in a way that is very accurate and funny. It's an attribute that I like because humor, quick-wittedness and humor is very joyous to me. I didn't know about that prior. So that was one of the attributes. Now, over the years, more attributes appeared. And sure enough, as I would write them down and acknowledge that these are symbols of self-acceptance, you could say, my version of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. My authentic experience in relationships of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And then those relationships would appear. Now, there were times where I doubted this. That wasn't me really thinking. Doubts arise from the old man. The old man thinks in terms of separation from fulfillment. That's not you. Who you really are is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and you desire to experience that pushed out as relationships, be it harmonious relationships, friendships, business relationships. And as you accept yourself the way you are, as created now in the perfect image of the Creator, as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, sure enough, these relationships appear as the various relationships in your life, provided that you don't settle for old man thinking, which is not you really thinking for yourself. That's old man thinking, illusory thinking, thinking in terms of separation from the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and you are here to experience love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, because that is what we can say God desires you to have. And you simply order your conversations, inner speech, inner thinking, from the premise of having, from the premise of being love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. One way of doing it is to create that list. He says, this is a glorious thought, and one well worth sitting in the silence with. I and my Father are one. You have heard it for years, yet when you ponder it anew, with the thought that from the next thought, I'm going to think God's thoughts, It will reveal in you a newness of life and purpose you have never known before. The still small voice, of which so much has been said, will finally become the only voice as you begin to realize your oneness with the Father within. I can of myself do nothing, the Father within doeth the work. Only God gives and fulfills the desires of the heart. If a person is identified with the old man ways of thinking, they may doubt, but that's not them actually doubting. It's old man thinking. Doubts can appear in mind. You are not the doubt. You release identification to it by acknowledging that is not you really thinking. If you have been created in the perfect image of the Creator, there is no separation between where you are and where you desire to be. We simply accept ourselves as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And it appears as wonderful life experiences, wonderful environments, wonderful conversations. This has been my experience. Over the years, if doubt appeared in mine, seeming to doubt that I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, that I and the Father are one, and as the Father is greater than I appear here to witness the greatness of the Father with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive, as harmonious relationships, ideal harmonious relationships. If doubt appears in mine to suggest otherwise, that's unwise thinking. It is suggesting otherwise. Those kind of thinking patterns belong to the old man. That's not you. You are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, pushed out as you appearing here to experience wonderful, harmonious relationships. Personal life, business life, friendships, relationship with yourself. That's what I mean by focus on yourself. Focus from yourself. Think from the premise of fulfillment. Think from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Put off the former conversation. That's what the people of the way do. That is what he's discussing here. So the mental chatter, it clears up as you realize you're not identified with it. It clears up. And the only voice heard and listened to exclusively and lived by is the still small voice, the voice of God. As he says here, there is a reason for you being just where you are in the great plan of God. And it is your place to reject all suggestions of doubt, of fear, discontent, and to listen for the instructions which you are to receive, not from an outside teacher, but from the greatest teacher in the whole universe, the still small voice, which will guide you into all things and show you all things, if you are willing to listen for it and be guided by it. So we have a choice then. Do we listen to the still small voice? Or do we listen to the doubts, the mental chatter in mind? Or perhaps the doubts that play out as theater, as people can reveal doubts identified with. Information can reveal doubts identified with. No shame and condemnation. That's old man thinking, playing out as theater, to bring awareness to the fact that you are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Be still and acknowledge your oneness with the Father within. Put off those thinking patterns. Don't think if those thinking patterns arise in mind, stop thinking. Be as you are. And you realize your true nature. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment in the stillness, from which the still small voice provides clear and accurate thinking. And why is that the case? Well, he says, it knows better just what you need than anyone else does, for it has been with you through all your progress. I agree. It has been with me through all my progress in life, and continues to be with me, continues to be with you. And it is the still small voice that I listen to exclusively for decisions in all areas of my life, because I have no interest in playing out the patterns, the repetitive patterns of the old man thinking in terms of separation, illusory, not from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. That's old man thinking, illusory thinking. He says, can you believe this? Can you have faith enough to turn within and declare your oneness with God and see it work out in perfect harmony in your life? Perfect harmony, true way of being. To imagine otherwise would be unwise. And that's not you thinking. We put off those former thinking patterns, bit by bit, as he mentioned earlier, if applicable, step by step, day by day. Right thought upon right thought upon right thought upon right thought, from the premise of our true nature again, again, and again, as applicable. If it appears in mind that you are identified with an illusory thought, there's an opportunity. It's the simple opportunity to think for yourself. Focus on yourself. Focus from yourself. He says, even as I speak, I am guided in what I say to you, because I declare always the Father within and give to you the message that he speaks to me. It shall bless you as it blessed me, and it shall not return to us void, but shall accomplish. It is God that worketh in you. Please note the location, in you, and then cooperate with him and do his bidding. Very clear, very simple, yet a person may forget this if they're identified with thoughts of doubt. No shame and condemnation. Listen exclusively to the still small voice. You know, Steve Jobs, in his commencement speech, mentioned it. Follow your heart and intuition. Everything else is secondary. He also said, don't let the noise of opinions drown out your own inner voice. Clarity arises from within, as he said here. It is God that worketh in you. Please note the location, in you. And then cooperate with God and do God's bidding. Which simply means think for yourself. Or really think for yourself. If it's illusory thinking, unreal thinking, thinking in terms of separation, thinking not from the premise of love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, that is not you really thinking. You really think for yourself. You listen to yourself, you trust yourself, and you think for yourself. That is you really thinking. You really think. You really order your conversations aright when you acknowledge God's thoughts as love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, from the premise of, as in, you are that, I am, certainty, no doubt. That is how you really think for yourself. So when I say focus on yourself, again, focus from yourself, you could say that as well. As these thinking patterns that belong to the old man are released, what happens is relationships that are ideal and harmonious automatically appear with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. Clarity arises, and you can even list, as mentioned, the various attributes that you desire to experience in your relationships. And these are true and authentic to you. You are here to experience the life that you desire to experience. No exception. I can say this with absolute conviction, as this has been my experience, and this has been my experience with everyone that I have worked with. They have, and they continue to do so, manifest ideal harmonious relationships with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive. And you and I are no different. They and you are no different, as we have been all created in the perfect image of the Creator. And so there is no need to think otherwise. We simply accept ourselves the way we are. Full acceptance of self. Unconditional self-acceptance. Because the self that is unconditional is not conditioned by limitations. Those belong to the old man. That is not you. You see it. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, I listen to myself and I trust myself exclusively as the still small voice provides vivid clarity as to what to relate to, ideally to appearances, from the premise of my true nature. Unconditional love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. As I accept myself the way I am, as I be as I am, as I simply be, just being, just existing, as existence itself is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. The fact that I exist is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, not for this reason or that reason, not for needing or seeking anything, as I know that I have. I am love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, and it appears to play out as ideal, harmonious relationships with increasing frequency on a continuous basis as far as the senses perceive.